there have been consequences, there have been fallout, and there has been deaths. Though India is not directly involved, but there has been the killings of 3 of the Indian sailors. And this is something which Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now taking it up on the sidelines of the G7 summit in France to highlight the safety of the seafarers and the maritime workers. Days after 3 Indian sailors who were killed in the US strike on a tanker near the Gulf of Oman. Now, with US President Donald Trump in the room, Prime Minister Modi is saying that the global sea routes must remain secure and that the sailors should be able to carry out their duties without any fear. He's also said that this is a collective responsibility of all to provide a safe passage for the sailors to work at sea. Now, this is coming across because this is going to be big and expected as far as the Prime Minister, who has voiced concerns on maritime trade impact because of the Strait of Hormuz disruptions, and saying that several Indians have also lost their lives because of the West Asia conflict. Now, as far as when it comes to becoming a collateral damage, because as far as even when it comes to strikes are concerned in the Gulf region, now remember, there is a significant Indian population that either resides in the Gulf, over 90 lakhs of them, and also several of them who are also working with many of these vessels, the shipping vessels, the merchant, vessels that commercial vessels that have come under attack, which were foreign flagged vessels, but had a significant amount of Indian seafarers on board as well. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who participated in a session with a group of 7 countries and also others on forging new partnerships and rebuilding international solidarity. Let's welcome Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni joining us here on the broadcast. Sir, good morning and thank you very much. When we speak of this first face-to-face meeting, sir, because this is happening after quite a significant amount of time and lot of developments, or rather when we say souring of relations that has happened between India and US, do you believe that the Prime Minister is looking for a reset?
Definitely. There is no denying the fact that this meeting after 16 months and probably even a day before the meeting takes place this evening, the bilateral meeting at about 6:30 Indian Standard Time, notwithstanding that, I think there was a bottom. There was a kind of a rapport which could be seen. And there probably that uneasiness, the breaking the ice, could be said, has already happened. And the very fact that the Prime Minister was sitting next to him and wherein the raised this issue of the seafarer being shot at on the Gulf of Oman is indicative that definitely a reset is required, and that reset, I would say, the circumstances have been created. That would lead to trade and tariff being spoken about, the H-1B visas being spoken about, the good relationship that needs to be. We should not be at any point of time be seen in the prism of Pakistan, because now suddenly the way the United States has seen gone closer to Pakistan, hosting Asim Munir time and again, indicative of his talking, all that. They must realize, the Americans have to realize that India is India, and that it is not the India that they think India is all about. And I'm sure President Trump understands that. And it is in that context that we see that the relationship, imagine it has taken almost over 16 months for these trade talks. How many times Mr. Goel has gone there? How many times the people have come there? And irrespective
of course, it has come under immense scrutiny. However, one thing that has remained consistent is what President Trump has talked about, his personal relations with Prime Minister Modi. But as far as India is concerned, Sierra, thank you very much in joining us here on the broadcast. Reset of ties, yes, but this is something which the United States also needs to be held accountable for. I mean, India is not a country where you can dictate terms. And this is something that is believed that the Prime Minister will be taking it up squarely with the President, of course, with this meeting that is lined up for today.
Well, as I've said before, America first is also about other nations putting them first. So it's India first. So I think that President Trump, I'm sure he's perfectly prepared for PM Modi to say whatever he needs to say to do what's best for India. And I think that they will have a productive meeting. I think that there's a lot that they can talk about where they are aligned. And some of these issues where they haven't been aligned, this Iran thing is hopefully going to be coming to an end soon. And the trade deal needs to get done. It needs to get signed. So, my hope would be that they focus on that. And I think they do both want to get that done.
Yes, because this is something that we're all looking out for, especially when it comes to the consequences and the fallout, Kulkarni sir, that, the world has to face, even though they were not directly involved in this war. Now that peace deal is expected to be signed soon, but till the time, we cannot take a sigh of relief till the time it is actually signed on paper. Anything can still happen. But Iran seems to be non-committal on several of the issues. But do you believe that India is the only country, I mean, still having those favorable ties, whether it comes to the conflicting parties, which is Israel, Iran, US, and of course, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, the leaders, they're also present for the G7 summit.
Yeah, there's maybe a slip between the cup and the lip. 19th is not very far, but Iran also seems desirous of peace along the Strait of Hormuz. That's a very good sign. Of course, Iran has its own, ways of putting their headline. They want Lebanon also. Well, this is a deal between the Americans and the Iranians. They try and drag in everybody into it. It's going to be very, very difficult. Obviously, what the Americans had wanted is no acquisition of nuclear armament by the Iranians. If that be achieved, I think everything else will fall in place. Of course, for us, it's very important that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open, because 80% of the oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz goes to the Asian countries. The beneficiaries are China, India, Japan, South Korea, all of them. And therefore, if the Iranian oil is permitted to go all along, because the Strait of Hormuz has been blocked, it results in nothing going out of Iran, nothing coming into Iran. Obviously, it was affecting Iran also. So Iran also is looking for a scapegoat and wants to get out of this entire conglomeration.
Well, no country in the world today is looking, for a conflict. And this is something which the Prime Minister has highlighted. I mean, many of them have been coming against India to say and questioning the foreign policy if India does have a stand or not. Well, India does. And that is standing for diplomacy and dialogue. And this is something which the Prime Minister on several accounts has reiterated, saying that they welcome the progress that has been made in peace efforts in West Asia, and this conflict which has caused loss of life and property in our friendly countries as well, and disruptions in maritime trade through the Strait of Hormuz has also adversely affected global economy. Now, speaking of this upcoming meeting, as the world's attention is firmly focused on France, where the leaders of the world's most powerful advanced economies have gathered, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is attending the 7th consecutive G7 meeting at a time when the global geopolitical landscape is witnessing unprecedented turbulence. Right from Iran crisis to the Ukraine-Russia war to the trade tensions and the energy security concerns, this summit comes against the backdrop of multiple global flashpoints. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who joined fellow world leaders for the traditional G7 family photo op, and also the outreach engagements underscoring India's growing role in global affairs. But today, all eyes would be on what could be the most closely watched interaction of the summit, the much anticipated Modi-Trump reunion, all set to take place around 6:15 p.m., which is Indian Standard Time. And this meeting is expected to focus on a host of critical issues. So what are those issues? The meeting that is closely watched, not just for the optics, but also for the significance coming at a critical moment in the global affairs. And this will be the first in-person meeting between the two leaders since February 2025, coming against the backdrop of an increasingly volatile geopolitical landscape. So the interaction that also follows a period marked by differences over trade and tariff issues, making it an important opportunity for both sides to re-engage and potentially reset the tone of bilateral ties. Now, top sources, what are we learning in this breaking update, are suggesting that the situation in West Asia, the Strait of Hormuz, the energy imports from the US are likely to be discussed during this meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump on the sidelines of the G7 summit. India and the US, which are keen on a long-term energy partnership, and the trade deal, which is said to be in its final stages, and the work should be over in about the next few weeks. So this is coming across, as Prime Minister Modi and President Trump holding crucial talks, several key issues expected to dominate the discussion, right from the death of and the killing of 3 Indian sailors to trade negotiations to tariff tensions to energy security concerns linked to Iran. Then comes the H-1B visa rules as well. Both leaders have been facing an important agenda that could also shape the future of the India-US relations. So the death of the sailors, of course, this is something which India has registered the strongest project. Then, of course, the interim India-US trade deal that is set to be in its final stages. The tariff dispute, India being labeled, the highest tariffs on part of President Trump, and of course, the subsequent coming down from that. and Iran and energy security issue, and of course when it comes to the H-1B visas and the mobility. So Sierra, do you believe that there are a host of issues that are likely to be taken up between the two leaders? Lot has happened in the last over 1 year, February 2025. When President Trump took over office for the second time, it was Prime Minister Narendra Modi being the first leaders who had gone to Washington to meet him personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they do have a lot to talk about. India is a major power in the world, and they are geographically close to a lot of these hotspots. And if they're not geographically involved, they're economically involved. That, you know, applies to Ukraine. Geographically, you have China, you have the Middle East. So, of course, I think that they have a ton to talk about. But as I said, I hope the first thing that they talk about is the trade deal, since it is an economic focused forum. And the second thing that I'm imagining President Trump will bring up is his recent comments that once the Iran ordeal is finished, that he wants to move on to focus on Ukraine. So that'll be coming back to India's energy imports from Russia and whether or not the U.S. can supply India or we can find other ways to get supplies to India while we work on a peace deal. You know, this isn't about shifting everything for the long term. This is a temporary measure to get a peace deal done.
Yes, because you rightly said, as far as keeping their countries first, as far as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision is concerned, he always keeps India first. And that something is likely and expectedly to be taken up as this meeting gets underway this evening, Indian Standard Time. Sierra, appreciate you joining us. Kulkarni sir, thank you very much to you as well for joining us here on the broadcast.